Could Ryan Johansen net the Predators an extra $4 million next season? We'll talk about his situation with the Flyers and how it directly could affect the Predators on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Friday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads, our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We especially want to give a shout out to Locked On Pred head Hannah. Happy birthday, Hannah. We found out it's your birthday. Had to wish you a special happy birthday today. We appreciate all of your support. We hope that you guys are planning on a great weekend ahead. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio. And my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
It has been a very busy off-season week. Hello, everyone. It's the off-season. Nashville Predators fans have had a lot to talk about, keeping up with the Yaroslav Askarov drama. And there are recent reports that Ryan Johansen has entered into a situation with the Philadelphia Flyers that has to do with his contract. This could directly affect the Nashville Predators moving forward. So we're going to talk about that on today's show. Plus, friends, it is Fun Friday. So we have a special edition of Takes from a Hat as well. Now, before we dive into all that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Speaking of Game Time, here's some not hockey related content that you all missed because we weren't recording. But Emma and I were just commiserating and found out that we have something very unique in common, and that is that we have a zero tolerance policy for people in costume. So, I have worked really hard to get over my fear of Nash, but we were just talking about when we go to games or you see a mascot or you see somebody on the street in costume. Emma and I found out that we have whatever that phobia is called, and y'all, we have it bad.
And apparently I have passed it on to my dog because she met Booster at the Nashville Sounds game the other night, wanted zero part of that encounter, which honestly, I can't blame her.
Yeah, Minka wanted nothing to do with the giant human-sized bird.
Oh yeah, it's a chicken. It's a hot chicken.
Yeah, it's a hot chicken. Yeah, no.
Red.
Let's talk about some other hockey and big news. I'm telling you, this is supposed to be the off season. This is supposed to be a slower time of year. Some people with the Nashville Predators didn't get the memo. And one of those is former Predator Ryan Johansen and the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, Johansen went to Colorado at the beginning of last season, was traded to Philadelphia, was supposed to report to Lehigh Valley Phantoms, the AHL affiliate. Didn't happen. So there was a whole kerfuffle about that. Well, then the Flyers came out and said that they had placed Joey on unconditional waivers for the purpose of terminating his contract. He cleared waivers, but Ryan Johansen's agent has said that he will file a grievance about it because, and let me read this. This is from the statement from his agency, Ryan Johansen's agency. Ryan Johansen has a severe hockey injury that requires extensive surgery, which has been scheduled. Since being traded to the Philadelphia Flyers, Ryan has worked in good faith with the club, its medical staff, and authorized third-party physicians. The Flyers' attempt to terminate Ryan's contract is disappointing. We have been in contact with the NHLPA and will defend Ryan and protect his rights. So this is certainly not a situation that has come to any resolution yet, Emma, but when you look at the big picture, and we can get into how this affects the Predators as well, what do you see happening here?
I mean, it's difficult to say, and what's hard about these kinds of situations are like they lead to so much speculation
Come on.
by people who have no business speculating, and I include us in that. We have no business doing that because we don't know. And I mean, if you think about the last time this happened with a player's contract being terminated because of a breach, a material breach, it was Corey Perry in Chicago. Look at all the speculation that happened there. Think
Inexcusable.
I don't even want to get into it. So, not saying that he didn't do anything bad or do anything worth terminating his contract, but like all the speculation as to what exactly happened just needs to not even be a thing right now because we really don't know. Now, I will say, leaving specifics out of it, I think that to terminate a contract or move to terminate a contract because of a material breach is not a small thing. Like that's not something you do unless you have pretty substantial evidence that the contract has been breached. Now, like what happened with Corey Perry, eventually, he did file a grievance, that's his right. That's any player's right. As a member of the Players Association, they came to an agreement, a settlement for an undisclosed amount. It was settled, contract terminated. Perry went on, signed with the Oilers. So could see something like that happen here with Johansen, where maybe some kind of settlement is reached, and he now either goes signs somewhere else or doesn't, whatever. But we could see that happen. And we like same with Perry, we don't know the exact terms of the deal or the agreement that was reached. That's fine. Where that could potentially impact the Predators is that half of Ryan Johansen's salary is still being paid by the Predators, and he's set to become a free agent after this upcoming season, so that would roll off the books after this year anyway. But as of right now, he is owed $4 million by the Flyers and $4 million by the Predators. So if, there are a bunch of different scenarios here. If the termination holds up and his grievance is declined or whatever the legal term is, he will forfeit that money. And the Flyers get to keep $4 million and the Predators now get $4 million back in cap space. That's the best case scenario for the Predators.
Right.
I don't know that that's maybe the likeliest scenario. I think the worst case scenario is still really not that bad because you're no worse off than you were before if you're the Predators.
Right. It's
Now,
what you've planned for.
right. You've accounted for this. Now, the Flyers, if the grievance is successful, the Flyers will get hit with an additional cap penalty, which the Predators won't. All they have is just the $4 million that they were already on the hook for. So nothing changes there. I would say probably the likeliest scenario, just based on precedent, it feels like it would be he files the grievance and they come to some sort of agreement, some sort of undisclosed agreement, that at the end of the day, it may not impact the Predators at all. It may, but it may not,
Right.
depending on how much he's owed as part of it. But I mean, I thought it was interesting that, the reason I think that that's the likeliest scenario is that the Flyers in their statement said, and forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something to the effect of, if we need to air this dirty laundry and we need to share this story, we will. So that's kind of telling Johansen and his agent, like, hey, maybe you don't want to like come at us too hard right now, and kind of we'll work with you behind closed doors to come to this agreement similar to what happened with Perry, and kind of move on from there. But at the end of the day, it was clear that the Flyers never intended for Johansen to play a single game with them, even when
Right.
they traded for him.
Right.
They traded for him as part of the Sean Walker trade with Colorado. Johansen came as a salary dump piece for that because Colorado said, all right, you want this guy, you got to take this other guy that we don't want. So they took him, immediately placed him on waivers. hoping, I guess, that someone would claim him, and then they would be able to just flip him like that. Didn't happen. So he got sent to Lehigh Valley. Oops, all of a sudden we have an injury. Crazy how that just
Yeah.
became a thing now of all times. And like, I know that he has a history of injury. Obviously, his last season with the Predators, he had the Achilles injury, and then there was during the Cup run season,
Right.
he had that injury and he had the surgery on his leg, I think it was. And so he's definitely got a history of injury, but the timing of it seems a little interesting.
It's slightly sus if
Just
you
a
don't know
little
the
bit.
details. Like, it's definitely something where you're like, I would want to look into this,
Yeah.
you know?
So I think all parties involved are just doing their due diligence. I think if you're the Predators, you treat it like act like you don't have that money, because right now you don't.
Right.
And if you get it, cool. That's house money. You save it for a rainy day. And by rainy day, I mean probably the trade deadline if you want to add someone and go on a run. You're not going to use it if you're Barry Trotz, if you get it, it's a gift. It's like you're finding $4 billion on the ground
Right.
and you save it, and like I said, rainy day. It's not going to change your overall strategy for how you approach the off season, how you approach training camp, any of that. Now, would it be a very nice gift to get? Of course it would.
I would love $4 million in the couch cushions.
It would also, potentially solve some issues, some cap issues they currently have. I mean, it was alleviated slightly with the Cody Glass trade, but even then, by the time you get to the trade deadline, if nothing changes right now, you still have to sign 3 of your RFAs. And if you get to the trade deadline, that's still not a lot to work with if you
Right.
really want to add a piece. So now keep in mind too that salaries are prorated. So even if it's determined within, I don't know, 60 days that Johansson his grievance is declined and he forfeits that salary and the Predators get their half back, technically it's going to be a little bit less than 4 million because it's prorated by the year, but still it would be a nice gift, but not a guarantee.
Yeah. A nice little chunk of change that the Predators, like you said, could do something with. It gives them a little breathing space. It gives them a little bit more flexibility. And of course, we have to wait for this to play out. There's a very specific process that this all has to go through between the Flyers and Ryan Johansen's camp in the NHLPA. So we're going to keep track of this story and, of course, keep you updated on what the decision is and how it does impact the Predators moving forward. Another big story that we're going to touch on, we're going to revisit in just a minute. Yaroslav Askarov, of course, requesting a trade. Got some feedback, Emma. Perhaps one would call it blowback from our takes on our previous videos this week. So we're going to read some of those comments and address those. And then, friends, it is Fun Friday. We have a great game of Takes from a Hat coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. We are all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and let them know you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, that's Indeed.com/locked on. Terms apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, Emma. So we, of course, have had some conversations about Yaroslav Askarov, just to refresh anybody who maybe actually has been enjoying some vacation and downtime on this quote unquote off-season week. Yaroslav Askarov came out earlier this week and said that he would like to be traded, that he would like the Predators to trade him, and that it is not his intention to report to AHL camp with the Milwaukee Admirals. So, of course, we had a breaking news reaction video, and then we kind of dove a little bit deeper into it on our next episode earlier in the week. And so I just wanted to kind of circle back and read some of the questions and comments that we got and address a couple of those things. So looking at the YouTube video, looking at the comments, I think there was a lot of great points. There were definitely different points of view. So I want to read a couple of those and we can discuss them. One of the commenters had, kind of a long summary of it, which was actually really interesting, and said, if we're going to get into this discussion, the real question is why the organization even drafted a goalie in the 2020 draft. Saros was posting great stats as a backup as he was slowly taking over the crease from Pekka. And in 2019, the season before Askarov drafted, Saros posted a .914 save percentage in 40 games as a 24-year-old. That is your future goalie right there. So I wanted to just kind of point something out, and it's something that has been shared with us as we've gotten opportunities to talk to the scouting staff and to, the front office folks. And one of the things that they have said consistently, covering a couple of drafts here now, is that what their strategy is that they draft the next best player. So they don't necessarily go into a draft saying, we are looking for a defenseman. We are looking for, a center. We are looking for a goaltender. And when you look at that 2020 draft and you look at, I think it was, they had the 11th pick, and when you look at the board that was there available at the 11th pick, Yaroslav Askarov was a really good pick left at 11. And so I don't know that they necessarily said, we're going to go into this draft and we are going to pick the next franchise goaltender in 2020 with where they were with Pekka and Saros. They went into this draft and said, wait a minute, we're next on the board and there is an exceptional talent at goalie and we could get him.
Also, have to think about it. UC Saros, yes, had positive numbers up to that point. Like, he hadn't given any indication that he was going to decline. But at that point, this was 4 years ago, he did not have nearly the body of work that he does now. So you felt a little bit less comfortable committing to him as your guy, to be your franchise goaltender. Of course, that was the hope, but it was nice to kind of have maybe a fallback option. Right. Also, people don't want to hear this, and I understand that it's not necessarily like a 1-for-1 or it's not this black and white always, but at the end of the day, every player is going to have value to you somehow. Sometimes a player may have more value to you as a trade chip than as a member of your roster. Now, before anyone comes at me, I am not saying that David Poile was at the draft and said, hey, let's draft this guy because he'll make a really good trade piece one day. No, right. That's not the point. Of course, you hope it'll work out. You hope that, if Saros doesn't pan out, great, you have Askarov. If Saros does pan out, now you have a trade chip that could get you a really good return. So it's all about I've seen a lot of takes criticizing Barry Trotz in this situation
Mhm.
and criticizing the Predators for not letting Askarov play and things like that. And it's like, well, we already beat this dead horse on the last show, so I won't get into it. He's not ready. Full stop. He's not ready for the NHL. But I think that by not trading him, I've seen people talking about, well, the Predators don't have leverage anymore now that he's requested a trade. And it's like, well, couple things. Number one, Barry Trotz has been actively trying to trade him for the
For a
last 2
while.
years.
Right.
So any
This is not
leverage,
new.
any leverage that he would have had probably went out the door the first time he dangled him out as a trade chip at the 2023 draft.
Mhm.
Now, that's part of it. The other part is that leverage really only comes into play if you're about to lose a player, if he's in a walk year at the end of his contract, anything like that. The Predators don't have to trade him.
They don't.
They have him. He becomes a free agent, a restricted free agent without arbitration rights after next season. So he is not going anywhere if the Predators don't want him to.
Mhm.
To which I say, Askey, you might want to get comfortable because Barry Trotz is not going to trade you just
For
because
nothing.
you've asked for it. You
Right.
can't again, you can't walk away from, people. If we're going back to the whole Saros contract extension and signing Wedgwood and all of that, and how the Predators made their decision with Askarov in doing that, could be true. But I think if you're Barry Trotz or if you're any NHL GM with a sound mind, you're not going to walk away from the proven commodity who
Yes.
is consistently a top 5 goaltender in the league, even at his worst,
Right.
just to keep a 22-year-old prospect happy. Like, that's not like Barry Trotz doesn't work for him. Like it's the other way around. And so I think that people are kind of losing sight of that and, think that Askarov is owed something just because he is a top, like a first round pick. Like I've said before, you're not
It's
owed
your body
anything.
of work.
You're
It
not
becomes your body of work.
Right. You're not entitled to anything just because you were drafted at a certain
Mhm.
position or just because, you've put together, like, yes, I'm not saying that, oh God, Askarov is terrible. No one is saying that. Like, he put together 2 all-star campaigns in Milwaukee. All
Yep.
great. Can't play when it matters in the playoffs, but that's a whole other story. So I think that, it's very bold to say that you were owed this NHL playing time and that you will not report to the AHL when you're only 22 and you don't have the body of work yet to back that up.
Yeah. One of the listeners wanted to point out and kind of got after us about, like, you're saying he didn't finish the playoffs, but he was injured and context matters. Well, now I know this past season there was some sort of tweak. The season before, I don't know that it was an injury. I think it was Devin Cooley needed to step in the Western Conference Finals. Regardless, you have to have a goaltender who is hardy enough, and I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying that you have to be able to get through the 60-some games of the AHL season before you can say I am ready to play an 82 game regular season. And I'm not saying that he can't. But I'm also saying you can talk about context, but the bottom line is you've got to have the player in net in the big scenarios.
Also, I hate to break it to anyone who is this naive to think that when players mysteriously have injuries at a time when they have been playing bad, like a lot of times, sorry friends, like it's, coach or whoever is putting you on the IL with a bruised ego or whatever it is, that's your injury. And I'm not, it happens in every sport, happens with every team.
Absolutely.
And I think that, of course, all these guys are going to be banged up and bruised up. And I don't like to glorify players playing through serious injuries in the playoffs. but it's clear it wasn't a serious enough thing to keep him out of the game or out of the series until his performance was suffering and it was, okay, we need to do something about this.
Yeah. Another comment we got, and I thought this was very interesting, and let's just go right for it. Why call him names or say he's immature or hurt his own career rather than just accepting that this was a business decision? Or is he doing what he thinks is best for his own career? That speaks for itself. Why does it have to be a whole thing? Would it hurt you to look at the positives? Be a professional. Okay, first of all,
did we call him names?
Okay, first of all, didn't call him a name. Want to be clear, Emma and I find him delightful. Personally,
I love him.
Is so delightful. As far as professionally and talent wise, I believe that we've said that both of us think he is NHL caliber goaltender. Here is what I'm saying. First of all, nobody called him names. It is a maturity issue. It is a maturity issue because you have to understand the bigger picture. And the other thing I will say is if you are leaving a job and you know there's no future in it, what you do is you take everything you can. I'm not talking about Post-it notes and pens. I'm saying you take every opportunity you can. So in the corporate world, that means that you get in on a project so you can add it to your resume. It means you learn everything that you can before you walk out that door. And that is how you leave well. That is mature. Yaroslav Askarov has not done that. And the opportunities afforded him in this next season, and I keep coming back to this, you have a chance to learn from Mitch Korn. He has just joined the organization. He has coached 5 Vezina winners. If there is no future with the Predators, and there may not be, and Yaroslav Askarov absolutely has the right to make this as a business decision, and bless him for doing it. I get it. But you take everything you can before you walk out that door. And I guarantee you his body of work improves with more more AHL games and under the coaching of Mitch Korn. And he has opted not to do that. And that is a maturity issue. Second of all, we are professionals.
Also, I just want to say that with, again, I think 2 things can be true. A lot of people like to, look at it in black and white. 2 things can be true. Askarov, it's difficult to see. Admittedly, it was difficult to see him having a future in the Predators organization. It was also difficult to blame him for wanting to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
We are not questioning or criticizing that desire. Frankly, I think it makes sense that he would want to continue his career somewhere else. Where I take issue is with the execution of how he has gone about this.
Yes.
Again, as Anne said, you leave well. You take everything you can. You learn from it. You don't burn bridges. You make connections. You make sure that you're going to go somewhere. And if anyone asks your former employer, hey, what was it like to work with this person? They're going to speak highly of you. And that's what I take issue with, is the fact that, again, the timing of it was bad. He could have very well, like, this kind of request or bold statement that he's made would carry more weight if he had another season of AHL experience under his belt. All he's being asked to do is follow the exact same development trajectory that years of goalies have done before him. He is only 22. He's been in North America for 2 seasons.
112 games of North American hockey.
Goalies traditionally take longer to develop and to get to a point where they are ready and they are trustworthy in the NHL. I don't blame him for wanting to go somewhere else. In fact, I have said previously, I think that he probably should, continue his career somewhere other than Nashville eventually. But if you're still under contract, you have the starting spot in Milwaukee handed to you on a silver platter.
And that's a competitive AHL team.
Second best league in the world. And a chance to go on another run to a Calder Cup.
Yep.
it's just, and you've got 3 games of NHL experience, honey. Like what what are we doing? Like I'm not saying that he's not that good, but
Correct.
I'm saying prove it. Don't whine about it, prove it.
And people have said, well, he's probably had these conversations in private. That's exactly right. I 100% think they have had these conversations in private. You continue to have them in private, even when you're frustrated.
Correct.
You continue to have them in private.
Correct.
Coming up, we are going to play a really quick game of Takes from a Hat to celebrate Fun Friday. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you are looking for some end of the summer fun events, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to get tickets to your favorite sports, comedy, theater, and more. And they have great deals on everything Nashville has to offer. And hey, if you're traveling over Labor Day weekend and you want to check out some fun in your destination city, Game Time can help you there too. Right now, Game Time has a 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks Dodgers game. They also have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Emma, it is Fun Friday. That means we are bringing out the greatest piece of NHL hockey swag, the 10-gallon foam hat. And we are reaching in and pulling out some quick questions. Okay, this is a cool thing that you'll know about because you live in the realm of cool. On Twitter, there is this new trend where people post things about like, no one's going to remember how much money you had or how big your house was, but they will remember. And then they post like a clip of something. And so I'm just curious, what is your most recent hockey won't forget that you would put at the bottom of that?
I guess it's not super recent, but I'm going to have to go with Global Series 2022, Roman Josi and Nino Niederreiter, but specifically Roman Josi getting introduced in front of his hometown crowd in Bern, Switzerland for the exhibition game. I have never been in a building so loud. And I get chills thinking about it.
That's incredible. Oh, so incredible. Mine is actually negative, but it's just carved into my brain and I fear I will never forget it. But it is at the end of the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7, as the clock is winding down and you know that the Florida Panthers are going to win it. And they're showing the clip, they're live.
I know where you're going with this.
It tears me up in the left corner of the shot. Matthias Ekholm is on the ice, and when the buzzer sounds, he picks up his stick and he slams it on the ice, and my heart shattered.
Your Swedish heart just shattered into pieces.
Heart is so broken. So broken. Oh, what are you most looking forward to in the 2024-25 season?
That's a hard one because it's a lot of things. Honestly, maybe an unpopular one, especially given what we just finished talking about. I am looking forward to spending more time and getting to know Scott Wedgwood because he is a guy that his reputation precedes him. If you talk to other players, other coaches, other like people who've worked with him, anyone who knows him, he's just a really seems like a genuinely good person. He is a really insightful guy. As a career backup, he spends a lot of time watching the game and has a lot of really good insight. And like he's pleasant to talk to. So I am looking for, that's my favorite part of this job is the relationships that you build. And I'm looking forward to cultivating that relationship.
Yeah. For me, it's very similar. For me, it is getting to talk to and getting to learn more about Steven Stamkos. And that comes from having so many conversations with Deandra Liu when all of this went down. She, of course, has covered the Lightning for seasons. And she just has spoken so highly of him on the ice, his on ice performance, what he does behind the scenes when it's not a game day, but also who he is as a person and conversations with him in the locker room. So for me, I'm really excited to get to know a little bit more about Steven Stamkos as well. All right, let's do one more.
Why not?
I know we're running a little long, but I don't like that one. It's our show.
Yeah.
Didn't
Didn't you write them though?
I did. But now that we're down to one more, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to be the one. That's not
fair.
Let me pull out the last two and see which one I like better. Okay, here we go. What two things? I just randomly picked two. What two things would make training camp a success?
No injuries.
Oh, girl. I didn't even think about that one, but that'll preach.
And I don't know. I feel like people read too much into training camp because like it's easy to overreact to things that happen in training camp. That players, the new players seem to mesh and fit into the system the way we would hope or expect. I mean, that's kind of a broad one, but
no, I think that's valid. Yeah, I think for me, it's that you start to see some chemistry with Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Shea, and whoever that they are with. So I think just kind of looking for just little pockets of chemistry, because again, training camp is just a whisper. It's just a whisper of the season. So I would say that. I'm going to go with you. No injuries.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Of course, training camp going to be kicking off here in a couple of weeks. Emma and I will be there to bring you all of the details of what's going on with the Nashville Predators, the new additions, and what Andrew Brunette is going to think as he sees these guys together on the ice for the first time. So make sure you stay tuned with Locked On Predators. Of course, you can follow us on social media, LO_Predators. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know every time we have a new episode out. Before we sign off, Emma, where can everyone find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at The Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work at Penalty Box Radio. That is going to do it for this week's episodes of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back next week with all new episodes. We'll see you then.